Let's bring in Brady, Quinn, and Danny Kanell with takeaways from yesterday. Did you remember Butch Songen?
I did not remember Butch.
We asked you for your takeaways, but Danny, your first takeaway is more of a question.
Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah, Chris, I don't know if you noticed, but last week I said, hey, keep an eye on the Patriots. They've won 3 in a row, and they've done it with a formula that worked for one young Tom Brady. They were playing great defense, playing pretty good on the offensive side of the ball, and here we are at 4 in a row. So my question is for Brady. Are you buying in yet? You were a little dubious last week saying, all right, the opponents have not been there. And maybe you could say the same thing in this game, but they do play the Falcons next. Like at some point, they're beating the teams on their schedule. They're setting up to be a playoff team, which I think is a little bit scary for the other teams in the AFC. Are you buying in yet to the Patriots?
No, not yet. I mean, what are we buying into them as? Are they a playoff team? Yeah, I think they're in the contention for a wild card spot. They're not going to win the division. The Bills are going to win the division. So what are they at this point, Danny? They're potentially a playoff team. There's still a lot of football left to be played. Here's the reality of what I think the brilliance is of Bill Belichick, because they dominated that game. I think if Cleveland and New England played 10 times, you're maybe going to get one game that looks like that in the side of Cleveland where they dominate the game, and the rest are going to be pretty close. Those are 2 pretty close teams. Unfortunately, Cleveland didn't come to play. The brilliance of Bill Belichick is this. He's been able to find players that everyone talks about potential. Everyone wants to talk about the ceiling of how good a player can be. He finds players that have high floors, meaning he knows that even on their worst days, what he's going to get from them, and it's good enough for them to be able to get a win. So he's not so much about what their top-end potential is. He's about the guys who have the highest floors, and that's where he's been able to succeed. Guys who go out there and even on their worst days are better than their opponents who might go out there and have an average day or struggle. Mac Jones falls in that category where you might say, hey, what's his upside? It doesn't matter because his downside is very, very minimal. He just goes out there and slings it and executes the offense. So the New England Patriots are a team and a roster that's been constructed that way. It's always been that way. But give credit to what they've done so far. The reality is, though, they go to Atlanta this week on a short week. They go, and Atlanta got pounded this past week. We'll see what that looks like, though. Then they got to play Tennessee, who's #1 in the AFC, and then Buffalo on the road. We'll know a lot more, as I said back when you asked me this question, over that span of 4 games. Now they got 3 more. Right now, it looks like they're in that wild card spot. There's still a lot of football left to be played.
At the beginning of the year, I took the under 9.5 wins for the Patriots, and I was like ready to cash the ticket after the 2-4 start. I'm starting to sweat it a little bit, but you did mention after the Falcons gets a little bit tougher, they pay the Bills twice. So I hope you're on the right side so I can cash in my ticket. I think I'm going to be sweating it out till the last game of the season, though.
Danny's on both sides. If they struggle, he gets that under. If they keep winning, he gets to point at you and say, yes, I told you so. Yes. Brady, what was your first takeaway from this week on Sunday?
Russell Wilson, there's so much concern about what would happen with him coming back after injuring his middle finger on his throwing hand. And the bottom line is he had this worst performance of the season. And this is going to be something to monitor throughout the rest of the season. Seattle's not quite out of playoff contention, obviously. That last playoff spot in the NFC is wide open. But the concern moving forward is, did he come back too soon? Could he have rested it, rehabbed it for another week or maybe 2 and come back better? He had his lowest complete percentage of the season. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions, only 161 yards. And as much as you want to credit the Green Bay Packers defense, and they did have a great game plan for him, the accuracy was an issue at all levels of the field, and in particular, downfield, where he struggled to really put much zip on the football, throwing off of that middle finger. So it's something to keep an eye on moving forward, for one of the best players in this league and a quarterback that I think has been able to air it out and been prolific at times. That's going to be different for him moving forward.
No doubt about it. I totally agree with you looking at him. And we were all over that last week. We were talking about Russell Wilson, like what was his finger going to be? And we acted like he was coming back like from the dead. I mean, it's just going to take time for him to get used to that finger and get this team in the right position. But I do think you see what that team was without him, and you see that it's going to be a struggle to get him back to full speed.
Danny, one of the big stories of this weekend was teams that had been struggling bouncing back, and there were several teams that were able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I look at some of the dominant teams, and two in particular who were considered the best maybe in the conference, and the Dallas Cowboys and the Buffalo Bills, and they had kind of surprising losses, especially with Buffalo losing to Jacksonville, and then with the Cowboys losing against the Broncos. And while that's typical, you don't win every game. That's why we've only seen that one team run the table. You kind of want to make sure that you don't see a one-game skid become a two-game skid, and you want to try to get back on track. And boy, did they ever, with the Cowboys absolutely dominating their win over Atlanta. You saw this team kind of wake up very quickly, which is a great sign for Mike McCarthy. And then the Bills, again, they come bouncing back with a vengeance. After their lackluster performance. And I know the opponents aren't great, it's the Jets, but at least you took care of business. And then I also thought, and this is a team that no one was thinking was the best in the AFC, but the Kansas City Chiefs, after a little bit of a rocky start, it's 6-4, and Patrick Mahomes has taken so much heat and criticism, and for the first time in his career, really, because I think we all look at him and we're like, this is the future of the league. But he was incredibly up and down and sloppy with the football. And for him on the national stage to come back and throw 5 touchdowns, zero interceptions, get rid of that kind of sloppy, careless play, and to have 400 yards passing, it's like, okay, they might have just put everybody else in the AFC on notice. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. So I thought that was, to me, kind of some of these powerhouses of the NFL kind of rearing up their ugly head after a little bit of a lackluster performance or a lackluster start to the season, and saying, no, we're not going anywhere. We are here to stay for the long haul.
The Chiefs are the one that stood out to me the most because of the struggles and the fact that they'd played such bad football up to this point, yet they were still in contention for a playoff spot. And now I think this is really starting to get on a roll. And we saw, obviously, a huge performance from Patrick Mahomes, the 5 touchdowns, over 400 yards, as Danny mentioned. But to me, it was the entire offense. It was the way Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy went about diagramming plays, whether it was the screens, whether it was the formations, to find ways of getting Tyreek Hill singled up and getting him leverage, or sneaking Travis Kelce out of the backfield to find wide open space. We saw everything start to come back for this offense, and Patrick Mahomes play the way that I think we've been accustomed to seeing him play. It's the Chiefs, to me, that I think now start to climb to get up top of the AFC playoff picture. I don't know if they have as much time, and Tennessee has such a weak schedule moving forward, in particular through the AFC South. But bottom line is, if the Chiefs continue to play this way, they're going to be exactly who we thought they were, and that's one of the best teams in the AFC.
Host the Cowboys this Sunday afternoon. That's going to be a fun game. Highest total of the week, up about 55.5 right now. Brady, Quinn, and Danny Kanell are going to stick with us throughout the hour here on CBS Sports HQ.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.